So I don't know how well this shows up on camera. It looks like this. You'll probably see me. Maybe I'll show this way. It shows Haze, right? So, I got a funny story with this one too, because this thing is so sensitive, right? I remember a while ago, my son, he was like 7, and he was sleeping, and my wife and I, he was worried. We were worried he had a fever, right? Yeah. But we didn't want to wake him up to take his temperature. So I was like, well, I'll just take my infrared camera and I'll just shine it at him, right? So I did.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Bamboo. We're now on video podcast. So here we are now. We've got Aaron back from Core Property Inspections. Brought him to kind of come down and do some show and tell, if you will, today.
Yeah, I did. I brought all my tools and stuff too. You can see them here, and I'll show them at the camera. We can talk a little bit about them.
Yeah, for sure.
Funny story. Actually, I guess I can tell this story on video now. He's like this morning. I know we were talking about what to wear on video because I'm not used to doing these video things, right? And I asked my wife this morning. My wife asked me, like, she saw me putting on clothes, and she asked me, like, "You're not going to wear your inspection clothes?" And I said, "No, we're not going to be on video. What's the point?"
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Video.
yeah, video.
So here we are.
Yeah, that's no problems. So a couple of questions just for like inspection wise. What makes you an inspector? Like, I do sales as well, and sometimes you see like Grandpa Joe come by and it's like, I don't know if this guy knows what the hell he's doing.
Yeah.
What is there, like? There's obviously a course of some nature, some sort of licensing or something.
Yeah. All our licenses are done through consumer protection. Okay. So they have set forth a certain amount of courses that can be done to get your license. Okay. So and there's a variety of kinds you can do. You can do a class version of the course, or you can do self-study, right? And I think it's about 150 hours in total of coursework and stuff too, right? So once you complete that, there's some obviously examinations, insurance, and then you can apply for your license and such.
Okay, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, it is cool. And I do a lot of work with new inspectors. Yeah. And I always tell them, like, all the coursework you do is just like real estate, right? It's never really going to completely prepare you for the real world out there on the field and stuff too. But it is a good start. It's a very good start, and then experience makes a big difference. Okay. Now,
when you're speaking with experience, do you mean like as in through going through the course, or like do you think there's some prerequisites to becoming a useful inspector? Like, would it help some construction background or something, or just clean off the street?
People can be inspectors clean off the street. That's okay. Experience does help. It'll just make the whole process faster. Yeah. But there are lots of inspectors I know that don't have a background in construction or electricians, and they're great inspectors. Yeah. Because really, at the very end of the day, I believe our business is all about communication. Mm-hmm. Really being able to talk to a buyer or a client and communicate the information, technical information to them in understandable ways, right? Okay. So, and sometimes I find other experiences that are not in the construction field really go towards that. Okay. So that's something to keep in mind.
Yeah, for sure. Now, so how long have you been at this for? You've been a while.
Yeah, right? I know. I feel like I'm becoming a dinosaur in the industry now, right? Yeah, but 14, 15 years, right? So going on to 15 years, right? So I got my license is it 15 years? Yeah, 2009. I got my license.
Are you just like a one-man operation now, or do you have like multiple?
No, I have one other guy under me. His name is Dustin. I'll plug him out there. Right? Dustin Mose, right? So he's been doing it with me for about, I can't even remember that now. 7 years now, 8 years or something like that too, right? Okay. So, and that's us, just a 2-person operation. Okay. There are other colleagues I work with on a casual basis, but essentially that's our team.
So now I guess your business sort of runs in flow with real estate. So if real estate's slow, you're slower? Or
sometimes, it's funny you say that, right? Because there's realtors always ask me when they're slow how much my volume is, because apparently they use me as a tracking barometer for their volume. So if they're slow but I'm still busy, they know they're going to be busy later and stuff too, right? So but it does work with the ebbs and flows of real estate. It does, right? But it's still a little bit different because there's always people that still want to buy out there, I find, right? And and there's always as crazy or slow as the market is, there's always some volume happening for us. Of course, right?
It's never zero.
No, it's never zero. It's never zero. Trust me, I know, because me booking vacations, I have to keep in mind it's never zero.
Well, that's like the rule of any business. If you book a vacation, you get busier.
I know. Like people that are slow, I tell them their marketing strategy should just be book a vacation. Yeah, go away. Right. Then all of a sudden everything will happen. Right? So that's exactly everything. Book a vacation.
For sure, right? So with the inspections and that, are there a couple things that I mean, aside from like, it being on fire or moldy or whatever, that you walk in and you immediately know something's up. I'm just saying for some of our buyers and investors out there, that if they walk in and they're like, no, immediately because something's going on, to just don't worry about the rest of the showing.
I mean, there is the rare case. I mean, I have a saying I tell clients, even if I get there and the building is actively on fire, there's still a price for that. So there's still a price for that. It's probably not going to be full price. Yeah. But sure, there's always going to be, it always depends to me if it's an investor that's buying in there, is what you want out of that investment, right? Yeah. What you're getting for that, what you're paying for, what you got to do, and then does it still make sense at the end of the day, right?
Of course, yeah. If it don't make, if it don't make sense, it don't make, no. If it don't make dollars, it don't make sense.
Yes.
Yeah. It's like a hip hop thing. But anyways.
Yes, I know. We can start rapping on this podcast pretty soon.
I already got the Wu-Tang going on.
Yeah, you do, right? So, but it's like, there's also a saying is it doesn't take me. If you get up to a building and it looks bad, it probably is bad, right? You look at the roof. If it looks ratty, it probably needs to be replaced. You don't need me to tell you how much longer it's going to last, right? It needs to be replaced flat out. And I think that's instinct does play a lot into that and stuff too. And there are other things too. You talk about mold. If you go into a building and it smells musty, there's probably something going on.
Yeah, of course, right?
There are the few rare cases in my career, and 15 years, right? There's only one or two times that I've gone into a place and I said, there's something here that you can't fix. And it's going to affect things forever for this type of building.
What was that? Or you get yourself in trouble?
I'll say it. No, it's not private. It actually has to do with piping. It's called Kitech PEX piping.
Okay.
It's a piping that has some stuff out there online that's going through a lawsuit and so forth. The issue with it is they used it for a lot of hydronic and floor radiant lines, right? Okay. So buried in concrete.
Yeah.
And because it's failing, when it leaks and it's buried in concrete, it's very difficult to go repair that.
Yeah, fair enough.
You got to rip up all the concrete, right?
Full jackhammer.
And followed by the company that makes this material has gone bankrupt. So you can't actually find replacement or repair pieces for it. So if it leaks, it's all done, right?
Yeah,
so
that'll be
you can see
penny, man.
So, but still, there's a way around it. It's just you have to accept that the building won't be in floor radiant heat anymore. Yeah. You're going to rip it all. You're going to abandon the system and put in electric baseboard, right?
Yeah, I got you.
But and that sometimes a difficult pill to swallow for some people.
Of course, you wanted this fancy thing and now it's gone.
Yeah, it's gone. Exactly, right? And that's where it comes you can still work with it, but you have to accept the facts that this building is going to be like this, right? And if someone doesn't like those facts, then that's probably not the building for them. So
yeah, now speaking of buildings, it's been coming in now that all the newer builds have to have air conditioning. So are you trained on that? Can you check air conditioning to make sure it's life? Because I imagine that a lot of people, for one, haven't had it, especially in Vancouver. Yeah. So they don't know about the maintenance, have to change the filter every year and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And whatnot. If not more I don't have air conditioning, obviously.
Yeah.
So I don't know the maintenance myself.
Yeah.
So are you guys up to date with that, or how does that?
Yeah, our association, actually, we did a recent coursework with our association and talked about air conditionings and so forth and just what to look for. So we do get trained on the air conditioning and what to do, right? Yeah. And you're right, it is becoming more popular. Actually, I'm finding one of the biggest questions to go in for buildings without air conditioning is, can I put an air conditioner in?
Yeah,
right. That's usually the bigger question that people have for me.
That and can I put in a laundry
or laundry? Can I put in a suite? Can I build a suite down here? Yeah, so can I put in a car charger? That's another popular one, right? So and so depending on the building, the advice is always going to be different, right? I mean, there's electrical questions. A lot of times, if you're going to put in an air conditioner on an aged building, you're going to replace the furnace, so that comes as a package. Yeah. It kind of leads down a road there, right?
Yeah.
I mean, at the very end of the day, anything can be done with money, right?
If you
put enough money into it, you'll get it done, right? But people, obviously, there's a budget, when people go into things and they want to keep that in mind, right?
Yeah.
But for actually checking air conditionings, we do have to check them. There's something called a temperature differential you want to check.
Okay.
It was basically checking the temperature of the air conditioning coming out of the supply vents and what temperature is going to the return vents, and that kind of tells you if the air conditioner is working or not.
Okay, that's kind of cool.
Yeah,
So you're up to date with all the new fandangled things that are coming in, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting for that. Now, I see that you've brought in a bunch of your tools that we It's because kind of a little show and tell, because I know that when we're there, you guys always show up with like a giant box of stuff, and I hear a bunch of beeping and booping, but I don't know.
Oh, we can make these beep too. Yeah. So we can make them beep, right?
I mean, the one thing I know is the sound of the moisture meter. Hear
that? This one here,
sounds like negotiations about to happen.
Yeah. The sound of the moisture meter. It probably makes it'll make this sound for the audience here. Oh, there we go. That sound, the sound of moisture.
You hear that in the bathroom? You're like, "Yep, we're about to do some negotiations."
Oh boy, yeah. No, this thing is probably. I guess I should hold up for the camera. It looks like this, right?
Yeah.
So, this thing is probably I think someone put it to me, our left arm for inspectors and stuff too. We use it all the time.
Yeah.
And people ask me to can you scan the areas for moisture? And I will, right?
Yeah.
But I always tell people the surface area to scan buildings is this big. That's what it was that like a 2-inch by 2-inch or something like that
2
too.
By 1 inch, something like that. Yeah.
You can't scan an entire building like that, right? You'd be there for 5 days scanning every single surface. So we do a lot of targeted scanning on areas that are at risk. So that's why you hear it in bathrooms all the time, because we're usually scanning toilet bases or bathroom tile or something.
Yeah, usually behind the shower.
Those are the areas, right? Yeah. And I tell a lot of new inspectors get this mixed up, and I tell a lot of people and buyers too, like if this thing goes off like this, it can be fooled. This is not the foremost like expert in everything.
It's not
right?
the end all be all.
It's all. There's a lot of things that can set off this thing. Like if I was to hold it, like this thing's made out of metal. I don't know if you can see this on camera, but if you go like this, that'll show up as moisture too. Because the way this works is there's signals that get sent out the back of this sort of scanning pad, and it waits for reflection. So anything that's going to reflect that signal is going to set it off, right?
Okay,
So sometimes certain materials behind tile or even thick tile will set it off as moisture, even though there's no moisture there. It becomes a false reading. Okay. So it takes a little bit of education, and it's not simply we scan and go, 100% moisture. Yeah. A lot of times we have to look and go, okay, what does this tile condition look like? How likely is this going to be a false reading, right? Yeah. And you kind of have to a little bit experience to look at the tile, right? Yeah. So for my process personally, every time I use this, you want to look at the grout and see, is this look like
fail?
Yeah. Does it look like it's failing? Does it? Yeah, and it can be subtle, right? It can be very hairline cracks, and that usually draws my attention towards them. And like, I can see it now how this is happening, right? But a lot of times I'll go in, I'll scan, and I look at it and go, there's nothing here that would indicate it. Doesn't mean zero, but it also means like how risky is there going to be moisture here, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And with people that are buying properties, I know what their biggest question always is going to be, do I have to rip off this tile and spend a bunch of money?
Right? Yeah, right. Because is there a range that's permissible, or is it just needs to be bone dry?
Well, no, I don't think it has to be bone dry all the time, right? It highly, highly depends. I mean, this meter, the maximum is 999. Okay,
so it's like water.
Yeah, that is water, right? That is like I might as well just throw this thing in water. It's the same reading. But it flags anything as alert over 200, right? Okay. So there are times I get readings of 206.
Yeah, so now is that like parts per million, or what is 200?
I actually don't know what this says, right? So because different moisture meters have different readings, right? If I was to flip the setting, it becomes a percentage, right? Okay. So it's just the way this meter has decided to rate things, too, right? So, so sometimes you'll get read to like very minimally over the threshold, right? Yeah. That's not a setting I'd say, hey, you should rip open this tile. It might mean something, but it might mean simply just replacing the grout is necessary, or maybe redoing the caulking. Yeah. Maybe they got the grout mix wrong, right? But something very low invasive, because replacing grout's really cheap. Yeah, I'm not a person in favor of removing tile unless the tile's starting to pop off, right?
Yeah, you're not going to go Brad Holmes, break it down.
Yeah. Like, it got some moisture, remove the whole enclosure, right? Yeah. No, that's not something we're going to do. And it's a very invasive process. And I tell people, like, we can get moisture, and you could remove that tile and learn that the damage is not as bad as you think it is.
Yeah, and now you've got a ripped up bathroom.
You're replacing the tile anyway. You just ripped it all off, right?
Exactly.
So it takes a little bit of experience to know what the right thing to do is with this thing, right? So
with that as well, with the moisture, I mean, obviously if someone just used the shower, it's going to be moist. So like, are you figuring that when people are going to do an inspection to make sure not to use the bathroom, or like
Well,
how does
not
that work out?
necessarily. I actually prefer people to use the bathroom before I do the inspection, because if a bathroom has been used for a long time, right, then it's bone dry. We don't know how it's performing. You shouldn't really get much moisture after someone used a shower, because if you're getting moisture every time someone used a shower, then moisture's getting in. Right, like that's what's happening now, right? Like the enclosure is designed to keep moisture out of it, right? So places that are very difficult for this moisture meter is if a place has been vacant for a couple weeks, right? We'll go in and we'll scan the tile and it shows up bone dry. But no one's been using the shower, so we have no idea what the performance is like unless something physically tells us it's not doing well.
So now in cases like that, do you run the shower or just kind of just read that this is what it is been vacant?
No, I'll try to run the shower and spray against the surround tile if I can, right? Some shower heads just don't let you do that, right?
Of course.
But that's still not the best test. The best test is someone's using a shower on a daily basis or whatever, how often, maybe less depending on the person, right? So and just
sort of all the French people.
And just scanning it and just seeing what the condition is like, right? People living in a property and then us doing the inspection is always going to be better than a vacant property. A vacant property is good that everything is moved, right? But nothing's being used at the same time, right? So it's hard to see the condition. So
cool. So
anyways,
that's the moisture meter.
Yeah, it's the moisture meter. I'll turn this off here.
Just so we're not beeping all day.
Oh, it'll beep one more if we want to hear it, just for nostalgia's sake, right? So there you go.
It's my dreams.
Yeah, what do you want to look at next?
Might as well look at this drone here.
Yeah, the drone. Yeah, so the drone. Yeah, so
now some guys roll with this, some don't.
Yeah.
What are you using this for?
Well, roof. It's a roof, like, or anything high up, right? So, but generally roof. I don't know. This is a more of a newer thing in our world and stuff too. Like, it's become probably very popular in the last, maybe I'd say 5 years. Just as they're getting lighter and the technology is getting better.
A little easier to drive.
Easier to drive. Well, anyone who played games before in the past is usually pretty good with these things, right? So I'm a little bit better pilot than my other inspector. That's what he said, so I'm quoting him. But you know, these things, obviously, like us going up on roofs all the time and stuff too, right? There's just some
bail off them.
Well, and there's some roofs you just can't go on, right? Like, they're either just the pitch is too steep, they're too high, they're like 2 levels up, and there's like a secondary roof blocking putting a ladder safely and such too. So it becomes more and more difficult. Further, there's some material you just can't walk on. You're just a risk of danger. Wood shakes and concrete tile are something that we really got to be careful with. There's lots of stories I have where inspectors have gone up on concrete tile before and they break the tile, right? And now they're hooped because now they have to deal with replacing that tile, right? Or they slip off a wood shake roof or something like that too, right?
Yeah, once it gets wet, man, it's super slippery, right?
Well, once it's wet, we're not flying this either, right? But so we use these, and you're right. Like, I've been doing this. I feel like my time is due to fall. I haven't fallen off a roof yet, knock on wood, right? But my time is due because I've been doing this for 15 years. So every time I fly these things up, I'm like, my time is due. so I'm going to use this thing and stuff too, right? So it will never replicate, unfortunately, the same as walking on a roof to look at the material. You can't feel it. You can't get close to the detailing and stuff too. But it is still pretty good.
Okay.
I mean, people really worry about roof leaks, and rightly so. I mean, no one wants water in their face while they're sleeping.
Yeah, fair enough, too,
right? But at the same time, the perception of roofs is I have to replace a roof and it's going to be expensive, or I have to replace a very expensive leak because I'm gonna, water's going to come in. It's going to be expensive.
Yeah.
And this thing will tell you if the roof material, quality, because you can see it at that point in time. And that's always going to be the priciest thing of any roof, right?
Absolutely.
The second priciest thing is if it causes water damage on the inside.
Yeah.
But we're also still going to look at an attic, right? So, at the same time, when you look at an attic, you'd be like, oh, there is a history of leaks, or there isn't a history of leaks, right? So,
of course, because you'll see like the marks and whatnot.
Yeah, exactly.
Telltale sounds. Right?
Exactly. So I feel like this thing serves us pretty good, right? Okay. So you do got to be careful with it. There are weight limitations, Transport Canada, where you can have, right? So this one's exactly 249 grams. Weight limitation is 250, right? Anything over that,
just under there.
Yeah, anything over that, you start getting into licensing requirements and stuff too, and that becomes a very difficult process.
Yeah, I was going to ask you because I knew that some you need to actually have a flight plan and stuff almost like an airplane.
You do. Yeah, and I actually at one point in time early when this stuff came out, I actually called Transport Canada. I was asking about someone actually talked to me, which I felt like was a miracle already from a government organization. but they were talking to me, and I was asking, and he was very patient and asked me questions, and he said, look, here's the rules. He didn't even agree with the rules. He's like, it doesn't make a lot of sense, but these are the rules right now. But I would expect them to change, right? There are courses you can take out there to get the licensing and stuff too. And our organization is now actually doing training for drones and stuff too as well. So it will probably become more and more common as time goes on because the technology exists, right? So
of course, right?
Yeah.
Have you done any major scripts with it yet?
No, I haven't crashed it. This is, I haven't crashed it. I actually, my first drone actually got stolen of all things, right? So that's why this is my second drone.
Yeah.
I have heard, I remember, I have a story where I remember I was taking this drone, I was landing it like this, right? And these blades spin really fast.
Yeah.
And I remember I was landing it, and out of the corner of my eye, I saw this dog come running out of the room. And it was like slow motion. I was like, no. Right? And I could see the dog's jaws moving towards this thing, right? And I wasn't worried about for my drone, I was worried about the dog, right? Smashed in the face, right? So but the dog, I guess the blades slowed down just in time as he snapped towards the blades. I think he got maybe a little bit of a nick on his mouth, but still, nothing major. It freaked me out, honestly, right?
So the dog is a little freaked out too.
Yeah. And to be honest, every time when you fly these things, they sound like a hornet's nest, right? Yeah. So every time you fly up, you see the wildlife start coming after it, right? So you got to be aware. Like hummingbirds come check it out. Like I had seagulls dive bomb it before and stuff too. So yeah, it's crazy, right? So you got to be aware.
For sure. So what else you got here?
All right. So what are we gonna get? We got. We'll save the fun one for last, right? But we'll do the gas detector. This is the combustible gas leak detector and stuff too.
That's probably fairly important.
Yeah, it makes a great sound. Here, I'll turn it on. More beeping and booping. There we go. It goes like that, right? I'll turn it off, right? So no, there's no gas in here, right? So
that'd be bad if it went off. Like, we gotta go.
Well, combustible gas, right? So when you initially turn this thing off, it makes it makes a bunch of sounds, and then it kind of tunes to the environment and stuff too, right? So we use this for obviously it will do carbon monoxide, but also for furnaces if there's a leak out the heat exchanger. This thing will pick it up. Or whatever else, gas leaks, right? If the gas leak on a gas line, right, this thing will pick it up.
Yeah, I assume you use these on like the stoves if it's a gas stove as well?
Yeah, depending.
Or is it specifically mostly just furnaces?
I can use on the stove, but I'm mostly using it on the gas supply lines for the stove. Because the stove itself, whenever you turn the gas stove on, there's always a little puff of gas that comes off and stuff too, and they'll trigger this thing, right? So it's mostly the gas leaks and stuff too I'm more concerned about, right? And we use it mostly, I mean, most times you can smell a gas leak more than anything else.
The eggs, rotten eggs.
Yeah, that rotten egg smell, they have it all over the radio. Mercaptan, that's how often I heard that ad because I know the chemical now.
So it did its job.
Yeah, it's doing its job, right? But everyone's sense of smell is always going to be a little different, right? Yeah. So that's why people I've done it where I've done gas leaks. And I'm like, oh, I smell that, and people are like, I don't smell anything. So now I need a visual tool that makes sound and tells me it's a gas leak, and this is what this thing is.
I guess people just go kind of nose blind. Like if your place always smells like gas, then you don't really notice it, right?
Sure. It's a whole debate of why your place smells like rotten eggs constantly anyway, right? But it is still a concern. Like no one wants a gas leak. And I've gone by where I've walked by the gas meter and I smell, I'm like, well, man, the gas meter, it smells like it's leaking, right? Yeah. And then you take this thing and then you got to report it to Fortis and whoever and stuff too.
It's probably also cost the homeowner some money because who knows how long that's been leaking for. They're using extra gas.
Yeah. I mean, there's stories I've had with new buildings. There was a new building out in North Vancouver where there was the gas connection wasn't very good, and I guess when they turned on the gas stove first, something lit on fire on the gas connection. There's actually fire coming off that thing and stuff too. Luckily, it was caught pretty quickly and stuff.
Yeah, too, right? I mean, that could be a slight problem.
Yeah, no kidding, right? So again, stuff like that is rare, but it happens, right? That's why we exist. That's why these tools exist, right? So yeah. So it makes a nice little sound. This thing also, it's funny. If you turn this thing on, right, it's combustible gas leaker, but it's like a whole bunch of different types of gases it'll detect. So if we actually go like, it'll actually trigger it, right? Because apparently my breath is combustible gas. So there we go, the gas meter.
Maybe it's all that whiskey from last night.
Yeah, all that whiskey, right? So yeah, all that whiskey is triggering my gas meter. All right. So the fun one, the infrared camera, right?
Yeah.
This thing probably again wasn't as common 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Very common now. I actually don't know an inspector that doesn't have some version of this. Oh, now it's not even turning on. So some sort of version of the infrared camera and stuff too. There's different kinds. This is the E6. If people want to get technical, it'll serve purposes. We obviously use it for detecting moisture is probably the most common one because it will do a wide area scan of temperature.
Much they kind of do a whole.
Much more efficient than this one, right? Because this one here is a 2x2. This will scan an entire ceiling, right? But the technology basis is based on temperature, right? So I tell everyone that if the water is the same temperature as the room, we won't see it. It'll be invisible, right? And that's always kind of a risk with these things. Unfortunately, there is no perfect technology for detecting this stuff, but this is the best we got, right? So
so I've been on a couple inspections with you, and you detected like mold and discolors in the wall. Mold generally is a different,
not necessarily mold. The moisture in the mold will be a different temperature, right? But moisture, whenever there's moisture inside walls, it's followed by mold. The risk is mold's going to be there, especially if the moisture's been sitting there for a while, or if it's a consistent leak. Then likely there's going to be mold on drywall because drywall molds up like if you look at it.
It just rips right up.
It just goes quickly, right? So I don't know how well this shows up on camera. It looks like this. You'll probably see me. Maybe I'll show this way. It shows Haze, right? So, I got a funny story with this one too, because this thing is so sensitive, right? I remember a while ago, my son, he was like 7, and he was sleeping, and my wife and I, he was worried. We were worried he had a fever, right? But we didn't want to wake him up to take his temperature. So I was like, well, I'll just take my infrared camera and I'll just shine it at him, right? So I did. He didn't have a fever, but that's how sensitive this thing can be. Like it is very good. There are times where if you get close enough, and this is not the high end version, but if you get close enough, you can actually see the arteries through your arms. You can see
that's pretty sensitive.
Pretty sensitive. So between the two, if neither of my moisture meter or my infrared camera can pick up moisture, it's so well hidden that no one's going to be able to pick it up, unfortunately, right?
Yeah, fair enough, right? All right, well that's like a good plethora of tools, and I guess of course flashlights and everything else.
I didn't bring my flashlight. Had to pick and choose. It's still charging at home. Flashlights. With all these tools, these are all fancy tools, but at the very end of the day, you can do inspections without any of this stuff. Like a good inspector could not use it. This helps. It makes it quicker, but it can be done, right? They can be done. And I tell a lot of people experience is really one of the biggest things, right? And then you add the tools after. And actually, a lot of new inspectors, when you're training them, you want to train them without any of these tools so they can be able to figure this stuff out and then add the tools later and stuff too. So
now for an inspection, what would you say is a average inspection time? Like, let's say a 1-bedroom condo.
1-bedroom condo.
1-bedroom
for me. It's a
little flex.
But I tell people a 1-bedroom condo should take anywhere, the average inspector, an hour to an hour and a half. Okay. Right? Like it shouldn't. I know there are some people that say they take 4 hours. That's a long time.
Because I've been to some where I'm like, are you looking for Hoffa? Like, what
I don't know. I've heard rumors that they're counting the shower nozzles or something like that too. I guess that's a service level people want. They can get that. Those people, right? But for me, it's about an hour, right? For a condo, hour and a half, I would be accept for other inspectors too as well, right? I get it too as well, right? All the way up to a house. Your average 2,500 square foot house should take about 2.5 to 3.5 hours. Somewhere between that time frame, I think is reasonable.
Yeah. So. And then as far as booking inspections, what would you say is like? Are you usually busy at the end of the week or the earlier of the week? Like, what would give somebody a better shot at getting an inspection on? Because I know
question.
It's different times, right?
It depends. Honestly, it depends on the season. Like certain times I'm busier beginning of the week. Like if we're in a market where it's like, you're getting, everyone's trying to get in their pre-inspection offers or short lead times, then the beginning of the week is going to be busier. If we're in a market right now, as we are right now, I think I'm usually busier mid to end of the week more and stuff too, right? So
a little bit slower. The people do the open house. Ponder, right?
Yeah.
I got you.
Yeah, exactly, right? So, but honestly, the best thing you can do is try to call maybe 4 days ahead of when you think. It's always tough because it depends on the offer that people sign and stuff too. Yeah. But a 4-day lead up time is always going to be ideal. It's not always perfect, right? Sometimes I'm busy like for the next 7 days, but 4 days is usually a reasonable time.
Now, do you guys as inspectors look over the strata minutes as well, just in case you're looking for certain things, like certain hints to like, oh, maybe I should check X or like that, or do you just kind of roll in and go where the wind tells you?
That's a great question, right? I have to be careful with my answer on this one. Here's I'm going to back up a little bit and explain this a little bit. So all our insurance coverages out there, as far as I know, do not cover inspectors reviewing the strata documents or the strata minutes, right? So we have to be careful. Now, not like the strata documents are not useful though, right?
Yeah.
They help us point at certain directions. I think,
yeah, I guess I was getting at like, if it's been reports of pipes or something like that, to maybe take a closer look
there
at
you go.
those,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. And that's how I like to use them is we'll look at the appreciation report and say, hey, this roof is 20 years old. Maybe we should look at the roof, right? To see what it looks like, to confirm what the strata documents are telling us, right? So, and I think that's the most useful way for inspectors to use the information is give us clues to where to go look and stuff too. Because condo buildings are big buildings, right? We can't look at I tell people I cannot look at an entire building, right?
Yeah.
I'd be here forever. Yeah. But the strata docs do help that way. Right?
Okay.
Right. So
cool. Well, I think we covered basically everything that we're going to cover for the tools and whatnot. Do you have anything to add? Anything to best practices when working with an inspector or anything like that?
Yeah, I think best practices for working with people like me is just the more information you can give us, the better, right? So if you know a history of anything about the building or have information about us, let us know so we can look at it, right? We're good, but we're not superhuman, right? The more I tell people, the more information you give us, the better. Give us a good lead up time when you want to book us, right? And if there's something specific you want us to look at, let us know, right? Because we usually follow a standards of practice. Yeah. Unless we know specifically what your concern is, it's very hard for us to address it. So,
wicked. So now, if anyone's trying to get a hold of you to book you, how do they find you?
You can go to my website, corepropertyinspections.ca, or you can give me a call, Aaron Borsch, 604-880-0818.
Wicked. Yeah. And we'll have that all in the description below, so it'll be easy for people to find.
Yeah.
Just click it and go.
Yeah, so. click and go. Make it easy, right? Because I can say websites all day long, but I know no one's writing them down.
Exactly, right? So alrighty, man. Well, thank you very much for coming on the show. Guys. Thank you guys for tuning in. If you've lasted this long, we really appreciate. We'll be back in a couple of weeks with another guest. So take care, and thank you for tuning in to Vancouver's Property Management and Investment Podcast.